but there's very little in the development of games that change the way we look at it. We had a welcome back, this is Jack. Is VR dead? I don't think so. However, it is having some growing pains right now. There are several things that kind of cause some problems. One, there's no super innovation going on with it. The most we got is full body tracking being the newest thing. But there's very little in the development of games that change the way we look at it. We had had one in Half-Life Alyx that changed the way we looked at first-person shooters within the VR environment. But with Unity showing its behind in the way it was treating developers, and Unity being almost the number one engine for VR, that kind of put a on trying to advance VR gaming. Now, I feel that in order for VR to take its next step in something interesting, is if you were able to find a way to do proper VR movies. Now, you might be thinking, no, there are VR movies where you're like watching and you can look around. No. Imagine watching a crime scene movie or TV show where you can look around the crime scene yourself. You can look around and help spot the clues before the main characters do, or something along those lines. You can watch an action sequence where you're watching from almost all angles the fighting going on. Now, that would take a lot of effort, and you'd probably start with computer-generated images, like using Unreal Engine type characters or animated characters. But because otherwise it'd be really hard to film properly. I think that might be the next logical choice in what can be done until an idea of a proper VR game. Because we have the VR MMOs in the form of Zenith Online and one other whose name I can't remember right now. We have some really good shooting games, and once again, the form of Half-Life Alyx, and I did actually like the Resident Evil 4 VR. And we even have a VR Battle Royale game in the form of Home something. I can't remember what its name is right now. In the form of Population 1. I actually stopped and just went and looked it up real fast. But we haven't had any good other innovations in recent time, and I think we need to find it. Now, there are some game concepts I would love to do, but obviously I can't do it because I'm not a game designer. Of course, would be something like a Monster Hunter style game, especially if you can get a co-op going for it. Could you imagine fighting like a Tigrex or a Rathian in VR? Now, of course, it does pose some issues in the regards of like, how would you fight it? Using sword and board and giant sword might pose some issue in VR because the dodge mechanics and everything, but you could, of course, use machine guns and stuff like that. Probably fill that gap pretty interestingly. The only thing we've really had is the technology getting better, but none of the features or programs able to keep up or fully utilize it. Yeah, it starts looking more realistic and stuff, but that's never been the issue with VR. It's the immersion, the gameplay that needs to catch up. And there's been some that have been just rather disappointing. Fallout VR, Skyrim VR are good in their own fashion, but the combat just feels like you're playing Skyrim in VR, not that it's a VR Skyrim game, if you catch what I'm saying. Now, like No Man's Sky does a great job with it, but then you also have things like Blade and Sorcery that does a phenomenal job with the concept, but don't have any gameplay beyond this sandbox fighting currently. 1.0 is going to change that, which might be the next step. So, in my opinion, is VR dead? No. Just right now, it's got some growing pains it's going through that it needs to challenge. We'll see how this goes. See you on the next one.